All right. Welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you.
I'm glad to be here. I appreciate you bringing me on.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. Why don't you tell everybody who you are, kind of what you do, that sort of thing, where you come from, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I'm Cody Truitt. I am from Ohio, Springfield, Ohio. Born and raised, grew up here. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Alexa. We have our daughter, Frazier. She's only a year and a half. That's our only kid that we have. I'm actually a recruiter for the Ohio Army National Guard. I've been in the military for 10 years now, and I actually started off active duty first. So I got to spend some time in Hawaii for three and a half years. So poor me, right? And then I joined the Guard, and I've been in the Guard since, and staying here in Springfield, Ohio.
That's awesome. So,
Yeah.
Two questions there.
Sure.
So Hawaii, is it as good as what people make it out to sound like?
Obviously it's beautiful, especially depending on where you go. There's more beautiful spots than others for sure. But ultimately, like the time that I was there, the 3 years, after about a year, you've done everything, because, it's about this big and here's Ohio, right? So like in comparison, it's super small. You can go to every beach, do every hike within the first year. So for me personally, if somebody loves that, that's great. I don't know. I'm weird. I like to be in the woods and, in the Midwest where I'm from. That's kind of my thing. So
that's not that weird.
Yeah.
I like that too.
Yeah.
My wife and I went to Florida, I think last year, and she's, all about the beach and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, I'd rather go to like Montana or something, just spend a week in a cabin in the woods.
Cabin in Tennessee, and I'd live there if I could.
Yeah, I hear you. So the Army, what do you like about it?
So obviously I like it a little bit if I've been in for 10 years.
Sure.
I think my favorite thing about it is, and I'm sure you hear it a lot, the camaraderie. I've got some of the best friends that I've ever had. We're all in the Army together. A lot of them in Ohio. Some of them I met from active duty, so they're all over the place. Some of them went to Germany and whatnot. But it's definitely the camaraderie, the benefits for me, for my family. That's something I didn't think about, obviously, when I was 18 and I first joined. But now that I'm getting older, I'm seeing how beneficial it is for someone with a spouse and a kid. That's what's kind of keeping me in at this point. Yeah. But then also, of course, I guess the last thing is I love to shoot guns, and we do that a lot. So
hey, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's in Illinois, which is where I am. Mm-hmm. It's a little more challenging at times, but there's so many rules and regulations and this dumb thing called a FOID card. I mean, you take it anywhere else and they have no idea what it is, but you have to have one to own a gun or to buy ammunition, do anything here. And it's just a money grab. You pay a fee, and yeah, it's just a money grab, but it's ridiculous. But so the Army, if somebody was on the fence, let me ask you, why should they join, or should they not? Yeah.
Why should they join? So yeah, let me tell you something. You plan on going to college? Have you ever gone to college, or you want to do like a trade? Yeah. So we'll cover 100% of that. No other branch offers that. 100% of that's paid for. You go, you do your time. If you want to use and abuse the benefits, cool. Use and abuse the benefits, get out. But ultimately, if you plan on going to college, or if you have debt, we can pay that off up to $50,000. Super, super awesome deal.
Pretty sweet. Yeah.
Not to include the opportunities of, you're in the military, it looks good on a resume. Get to stay close to home, stay in Ohio. Different trades that you can learn, stuff like that.
Yeah. I think I've been talking to quite a few. I work with a lot of students or young people, teenagers. And I think one of the things I've noticed is that there is an attraction not to go to college as much. And I think it's been growing for quite some time. And to be honest, I can't blame them. I mean, I know several. I've got a kid who's going into a trade school out in Wyoming for welding, some well-known welding school, and that's where he's going next year. It's like the 6 month or something like that program that he's going through, and he's going to do that, and he'll come out and he'll be hired on as an apprentice right away. And I mean, other kids, they'll still be in college for 3 years, right? I'm like, why not pursue some of these other paths that we just desperately need right now? And I think I had a friend in high school who went through the Army like you're talking about, and it paid for his whole way through, and he's benefiting now from all that. But let's switch topics here for a minute. So you run an Instagram page. Talk about that a little bit. Talk about what you enjoy about it, what your mission is, all those, what you're hoping to accomplish by doing it. I know about it, but for those who don't.
Yeah. And I got to say, you've been following me since day one. I'm pretty sure you followed me when I was Sovereign Brotherhood, and then I changed it to Of Sound Mind Feed. And if it's okay with you, I kind of want to explain like my upbringing, and then because that leads into my purpose and my hope for the page itself. So I'll go back. I grew up in a very picture perfect family on the outside. And my parents were both together. We did have a somewhat of a good upbringing. I spent a lot of time with my mom and dad, and we went to church every Sunday. But like I said, we were a picture perfect family, like on Facebook. My mom was heavy on Facebook, and she'd always post all the great things, and then there's nothing wrong with that. But it put that stigma on our family that we were perfect when us kids knew that we weren't. And especially as I got older, fast forward a little bit, I joined the Army and I got married to my first wife. And I came back home, and then we lived together, and we got divorced within 8 months. Now divorce runs pretty heavily in my family outside of my parents. And broken families, just terrible upbringing as far as parenting goes. And then fast forward a little bit more, my parents got divorced, and that hit me pretty heavy. Even though we went to church growing up, I would say now I know I had an infant faith, right? I actually heard that term a while back, and I had no idea that I was just an infant in my faith for years, all the way into my early 20s. And I just kind of, I said I was a Christian. I went to church. But then as soon as all these things started to happen, my divorce, my parents' divorce, I fell into some bad habits. I fell into some bad things. And something that kind of woke me up was, oddly enough, when I started the page, was back when COVID hit. And, I started listening to podcasts. I think the first one I listened to was Order of Man. And, hearing him talk about masculinity and being a man, and that's never something I've ever talked about with anybody. I assumed I was a man because I joined the Army and I moved out of my parents' house, and I was a man. But then I started to learn a little bit that it was a little bit more than that. And if I'm being completely honest, I started the Sovereign Brotherhood to just kind of jump on that like masculinity trend that I thought it was a trend.
Yeah.
And then it kind of gradually changed over time. If you look at the page, it's more so a timeline of things that I've learned, things that I'm continuing to learn. and you can see the different seasons. I've changed things over time, stuff like that. It's just different things that I'm learning and going through. But that leads me to, I met my wife that I'm married to now. And that's when I really started to, I wanted to be a good husband. I had a first marriage and it failed, and I blamed her, and I didn't look at myself. But when I got married to my wife now, I really started to reflect on being a good husband and being a good man. And then I know, because I know you said you have 4 kids, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as we found out she was pregnant, something just clicked in my brain and in my heart. Like something just happened to me. And I knew at that moment that I had to get it right. I had to be a good man. I had to be a good father, because my friends around me, I've just seen so much divorce and toxicity in these upbringings and their families. And I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to be that for my daughter. And then especially when she was born, it just does something to you. And it definitely did something to me. But anyways, now what the page has become and what I hope to accomplish with it is I want to just take people along with me on my journey. And in the mix of that, encourage men, encourage fathers, encourage husbands to be persistent in, pursuing manliness and being a good father, being a good dad, but also mostly pursuing Christ and growing in their faith. If I can do that by showing, kind of mixing it all in there together, things that I learned, what it takes to be a man, father, all of that. So I know that was a long explanation, but
no, man,
that's
good. Yeah. Man, there's so much there that you're talking about, and you're describing, I think, a lot of guys' backgrounds right there. We live in a culture that is messed up, and definitely, I mean, and people ask what's wrong and all these things. And I mean, look at divorce rates, look at broken families, look at all these things that have contributed to the downgrading of the family. And truthfully, that's what part of why I started mine was, because if something had happened to me, I wanted my son to have something that he could look at and say, well, this is kind of what dad was about. This is what dad wanted to leave me. Or if something happened to me, here's what you have. And that's how it kind of started. And I'm kind of like you. I just post things that are kind of on my mind or going through my head, or things I know I need to work on right now. And it sounds a lot like what you're doing. But let me ask you, like, how did your faith impact this go around? Like when was that moment that you just realized, man, it's all about Jesus now?
Yeah. I can't pinpoint a prophetic moment where the clouds opened up and light shined down, but it was just a series of things that I was doing. I don't know. I'll kind of share some of the things. I don't want to spill all my sins out there, but I got heavy into alcohol and women and all these things that just tore away my soul, and I could feel it. I was depressed all the time, angry all the time, and you would never know though. I was pretty good at faking the funk, but over time I just started thinking to myself, like, you are a mess, dude. And having that faith background, I think that's where God was really like just kind of punching me in the gut, like, come on, you idiot, So I had that knowledge, I had that faith knowledge, and that's why I thank God that he did just continue to tug on my heart and pursue me relentlessly, because I lost my train of thought, but I did all these things, and I knew it was wrong. And actually one day I just picked up the Bible, I was real upset about something, I don't know, but I picked up the Bible, I was reading through it, and I realized that I didn't know much about the Bible. And I was like, man, I'm going to go to church this Sunday. And so I went to my church, and then the pastor was talking about some of the sins that I was living in, some of the sin that I was living in. And it was almost like he was speaking straight to me. And from that point on, I slowly over time just knew, like, hey, I got to pursue this. I gotta do something, because I'm a mess right now. And so.
Yeah, I hear you. Who were some of those? Were there certain people you started listening to or reading, or any of those things that were super influential to you?
One of the ones I definitely think of is Jarrett on Pursuit of Manliness.
Yeah.
He definitely rocked my world. And not just because I'm on your podcast. One of the things that really got me, I would see your Sunday posts every Sunday, get your family to church. And man, I saw it, and I'm like, I know. And actually, so when our daughter was born, we were going to church, but with her being a newborn, and there was a lot of sickness going around and stuff like that, we mostly just watched church at home. And I say that very loosely, because we didn't watch church every Sunday,
Yeah.
And your post of get your family to church was just beating me in the gut every week. And finally, after about 10 months, we bucked up, and we were like, let's just go. Let's just go. Whatever happens. If she cries, whatever, we'll take her out and whatever. But we went, and now we're going every Sunday. And it's been about 6 months. No, a little bit more than that, about 8 months now. So I appreciate it, by the way. I appreciate.
I get some interesting messages from those posts. Some positive, some, why'd you post that again? Comments. Yeah. Jarrett and we're gonna have a conversation, I think, here in about a week or so. So I've been trying to work that out for a while, but that should be good. I smile because there's always some kind of excuse, and we know better than most with 4 kids. The oldest she's going to be a teenager here in like a month and a half. Right. And then the youngest is 2. So we've got the wide variety. I'm up front. We're a small rural church. My wife plays the piano. So we're trying to juggle all the kids. I'm like, people, they'll tell us, man, what are my kids so loud and all that stuff? I'm like, trust me, no one can be louder than our kids. And you'll know right away, because if they get their name called from the front, there's going to be problems from dad later. And the youngest gets his name called a lot because he's 2. There's a few weeks ago, I can't remember if I've shared this or not on a podcast or something, but he's up front with my oldest. They're sitting there. He likes to play with his cars. So he's up there doing his cars. It's communion time, of course. He's up there. He's messing around. Well, he drops a bunch. And they're rolling under the pews. And the floor's slanted. So they're rolling down a little bit. And, well, he gets under and goes to get him. And sure enough, he gets stuck under the pew. And so he starts yelling, Dad, I'm stuck. Dad, I'm stuck. Right during communion time. So it's like super quiet, people are starting to giggle and laugh. I'm just trying to hold it together. I'm like, what in the world is happening? His older sister, she's mortified, everyone's staring at them. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, that kid. They keep you on your toes. I'm telling you.
Yeah. And that makes me think of a good point. I like, because we go to church and we think we have to be so serious and perfect. And, my daughter's cried in the back a couple times because she's mad because we won't let her walk around the whole church,
Yeah.
And the first couple times I was a little irritated, like, I'll pick her up and take her out and walk around. But then now it's funny, it's those moments that it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay if, she's crying in the back. Doesn't have to be that serious.
Yeah. I think back to like the first century church. You read some things in Acts about what they were doing and what life was kind of like. And often when they were sharing the word, it was gathered around a meal that they would be sharing together. And you can just imagine like the families there. And like, kids don't really change that much. They were loud, they were doing all these things. That's just life. It's just real life. And that's why I enjoy your post, because it's kind of just a daily reminder that it's easy to get sucked up into this world a lot. It's easy to get sucked up into the culture and whatever's on the news at the most recent moment and all these things. And it's just like a brief glimpse of some scripture that I'm assuming, it's been on your mind or you've been reading or whatever. And I'm just like, that's perfect. Just like a daily like snapback for me. Like, I need to be refocused, and that is perfect for doing that. So I wanted to tell you, I really appreciate that, because it is super encouraging to me, because some days are harder than others. I mean, that too. I'm sure some days it's easy to recruit and other days it's not so easy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are some things you're doing to better yourself in the area of just becoming a better man? Because I think we can try to become a better father, we can try to become a better husband, but oftentimes we need to do some self practices that help us grow as men. Because like you said, when you came to the order of man, there were some things you thought you were doing right, but there's a whole other level to this manhood thing. So what are some things you are focusing on right now?
So very first thing, I'm trying to study Jesus and who he was and what he did.
Sure.
Because obviously that he emulates the perfect masculine man in every way. So I'm studying Jesus. I'm trying to figure that out. And then obviously, I'm listening to podcasts and I'm reading books now. And I'm searching, I'm digging deep for answers and, I don't want to copy other men in the sense of like, I don't know, change my identity in a sense.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to take points from other men and what they're doing, and I want to apply it. I don't want to just think like, hey, that's a great idea, and then not do anything about it. But I want to apply it, and it's been tough, because I'm completely emptying a cup that was full, and habits and ways to think and ways to talk are it's hard to change that. But there's a lot of areas where I have been changing, and it's very refreshing, because I'm seeing it affect positively my wife, and other people in my life. And so, yeah, I'm still learning. Listen, I know that page may make it seem like I'm holier than thou sometimes, but man, I'm still imperfect. I'm still broken. I'm just trying to get there. I'm trying to back myself. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm just trying to learn more about Jesus, who he was, and apply it.
Hey, I don't see anything wrong with that. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's part of what this journey is all about, and why I'm trying to get a lot more men to come on, is because I think we all bring some type of value and something we can learn from, and something that will kind of push us to be better men.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the cool things we get to see, is that everybody comes at it from a different angle. You're coming at it from a different angle than I am. Jarrett comes at it from a different angle than you are. And it's just, but if we learn from one another on these things, I do think it is an iron that will sharpen iron, because we can all benefit from that. You see in the New Testament, Paul was still teaching Peter some things. Peter looked at James. John was the last, probably the last living apostle of Jesus. And I mean, the first century Christians were desperate to know what was it like to live with Jesus, and they wanted to learn. And that's part of what we're doing too, is I think we're just having a conversation that we can just push each other, learn from one another, and I hope walk away more encouraged.
Yeah.
So if people want to learn or get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
So if you go to Instagram, follow my Instagram page. It is ofsoundmind_feed. There's a link there. Takes you to a few things. There's a gear store, which I actually adopted from you. I liked that gear store that you use. So I definitely, I use that one.
Awesome.
And then there's prayer requests. There's a prayer request drop down in there. I'm pretty serious about that. I've had a couple prayer requests. Really, it's really just kind of spark a conversation with people, kind of get to know people, and then, we can pray about it, pray for them, and stuff like that. But that's how you get me.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I'll drop all those links in the description as well. But hey, man, I really appreciate you coming on. I've been really encouraged by this. Anytime we can point people to Jesus and encourage people that they're not alone in that walk. I think we're in a culture now where it can feel kind of lonely at times, especially as a Christian. And we need to encourage one another and push one another. And you are definitely doing that to me personally. And I think others who listen to this will be encouraged as well. So I appreciate you very much.
I do. I appreciate you. I appreciate your kind words. I appreciate you bringing me on. I appreciate you having this conversation with me. Because like you said, it is important. It's so cool. It's so cool that we can do this and bring other people into it and just have that camaraderie. Because that's what's going to get us there.
Yep. You're exactly right. We need one another. You're exactly right. Hey man, I appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
Hang on there. Let me close this recording.